right, looks like we got quite a bit of people joining us already. We're going to give it a couple of minutes before we go ahead and get started with our webinar for tonight, which will go over life as a student of color on campus. So hopefully we'll get some more people joining us, but for everyone who's on here so far, welcome. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. In terms of wherever you are in the world or across the country. We can go ahead and get started with some introductions as we kind of wait for students and families to log on. But my name is Chelsea Santiago, and I'm Assistant Dean of Admission at Colgate. I'm also a Colgate alum, class of 2019. Originally from Arizona, double majored in political science and psychology. I work primarily with students coming from the Southwest. So Arizona, California, Nevada, and New Mexico are my states. And I also work on our multicultural recruitment outreach team within our office. Super excited to kind of talk with you, share a little bit about Colgate, but also have our students here as kind of panelists to answer some questions that students might have about what life as a student of color can be. We're going to go ahead and do some introductions as kind of our numbers have started to kind of stay stabilized. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the students to introduce themselves with their name, where their hometown is, if they have any majors or minors that they might be thinking about, their class year, and then also list some activities that you are involved in. KP, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Hi everyone, my name is KP, full name Kevin Porter. I'm a current senior here. I'm a philosophy major, econ minor. I'm currently in the Canossione Senior Honor Society. I'm in the real estate club on campus, member of BSU. I work for Colgate Career Services. That's about all I can think of right now. There are a couple other things.
Awesome. Kaylani?
Hi everybody, my name is Kaylani. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a Pisces, a sociology major, a writing and rhetoric minor. Some things that I'm involved in, I'm a part of the Colgate Student Coalition. I do all of the website work. I do Latin American dance whenever we do dance. I work at the Longyear Museum of Anthropology as a curatorial assistant. I also work at Alana Cultural Center as a Alana ambassador. What else? I think that's about it.
Great. And Michaela.
Hi guys, my name is Michaela. I'm a freshman, so class of 2024. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. Not really sure what I want to major in yet, but I'm interested in sociology or psychology. And so far, I'm involved in Sisters of the Round Table, and I'm also an alumni memorial scholar, which is cool because my work study job, I'm an alumni memorial scholar intern, which is fun.
Awesome. And you guys are going to hear really about all of their experiences, their time as Colgate students. And just to kind of give you a little bit of an outline on what the next kind of 45 minutes will look like, I'm just going to go over kind of a brief introduction in terms of statistics about Colgate, in terms of our students, a little bit about life in terms of the community as well. And then I'm going to open it mostly to some discussion questions that we do have outlined for our students. And then I'm hoping for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, we'll go ahead and dive into a Q&A with all of our panelists and participants we have today. So when I can indicate that, feel free to start putting in your questions in our Q&A function. We'll either answer them live throughout that time, or we could also type the answer to you. We're hoping to really, just answer any questions that you guys might have and use these students as kind of the resource to get a little bit of a glimpse to what life as a student of color is. So just to kind of get us started, a little bit about Colgate. We're around 3,000 undergraduate students. We are primarily an undergraduate institution. We're coming from 49 different states, 77 different countries, students coming from all different corners of the world, definitely building the sense of kind of global community in which they're able to bring their cultures, their thoughts, their opinions, and their perspectives onto Colgate's campus. About 25% of our students identify as students of color, domestic students of color, and about 15% of our students, which includes dual citizenship, are international students as well. And when we think about, again, our students really being on the forefront of different discussions, different initiatives, they truly are bringing what they want in terms of passions onto Colgate's campus, in terms of thinking about different plans in place. We put together a third century plan, and within that, our diversity and equity and inclusion plan, through, important discussions that our students are really putting towards making sure that Colgate is thinking about its sense of diversity through, not just racial and ethnic diversity, but also socioeconomic status, geography as well. Definitely these important conversations are the ones that our students are leading and wanting to bring this up to a different administration, faculty, and staff onto our campus. Also, about 9% of our students are also first generation college students. Again, within our kind of third century plan, we're thinking about, accessibility, thinking about equity and inclusion as well. We also became partners with QuestBridge this year. So students who are part of the QuestBridge Scholar Match program, we are a QuestBridge school. And we also partnered with the American Talent Initiative and continue to partner with quite a bit of community-based organizations that, are able to bring, normally underrepresented students coming from those communities onto our campus. But we also want to make sure there is that support there in place for them when they do arrive to Colgate, and making sure they have those resources and communities for when, they decide Colgate is definitely going to be the place that they call home for the next 4 years. So that's just a little bit about Colgate, the sense of diversity, the sense of thinking about the community. But really, when we think about, life as a student of color in, predominantly white institutions, similarly to Colgate, it can be a bit of a different experience. And I think what's important to kind of know is definitely that, students all have their own different stories, different backgrounds that they come to Colgate with, but are really able to kind of bond as a community, as a cohort in many ways, and through different resources, offices, and are able to, I think in the way unite as one as well. So I kind of want to start turning this to our students as well, and talking a little bit about the questions that I've posed to you. And of course, we're going to dive into some more questions, but just to kind of get us started, Michaela, you are a first year. I know that you, hasn't been too long since you've kind of been in the shoes of many of our seniors who might be with us today, but can you talk a little bit about your college search process, how that kind of went, how you decided that Colgate was the place that you wanted to attend?
Yeah, so mainly for me, I was looking at going to liberal arts colleges. So I had already narrowed down my list, because the thing I admire most about it is usually there's small class sizes, so you get more one-on-one time with professors and things like that. And it's also kind of an opportunity for you to go to a school not knowing necessarily what you want to do yet, because you are, you're going to take a lot of classes in a lot of different areas. So already looking at liberal arts colleges, I found Colgate. And one of the reasons I decided to pick Colgate was because it's kind of like in the middle between a university and a traditional liberal arts college. There's more students, but you also have the small class sizes, and also the D1 sports kind of like sense of school spirit, everything like that. I'm not an athlete, but just the idea of it was pretty exciting to me. So that's one of the reasons I decided to come to Colgate, and yeah, very happy with this choice.
Awesome. And Kaylani, you're also not coming from, the East Coast, or at least New York. How did you hear about Colgate? What was kind of your reasoning behind, attending this institution?
Yeah, so I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm from Metro Atlanta, and I heard about it from a family member, and they were just telling me, you should apply to the school, Colgate University, and I was like, why would I ever want to go to a school that has the name of a toothpaste? Anyway, that's besides the point, but applying for colleges was a really difficult process for me. I'm a first generation college student, and my parents didn't really know what was going on and how to help me get to where I needed to be. But I applied to Colgate, one, because I was thinking about doing a major in international relations, and Colgate University has a fantastic study abroad program, and it looks a lot bit different now since we're in a pandemic. But that was one of the main things that was attractive to me, as well as their financial aid packages, which were extremely generous. And yeah, those were my two big reasons.
Great. Awesome. Well, we're happy that both of you, decided on Colgate and are, whether it's already 3 years in or, just starting out your college experience, definitely are, sharing that with us tonight. KP, I know it might be a little hard to kind of reflect on thinking about, almost 4 years ago, but can you talk a little bit about the transition between high school to Colgate? What was that like? And was there anything that you didn't really expect that you found at Colgate?
I think, well, first off, I forgot to mention, but I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. So if anybody out there is from there, shout out to you. I think my transition to Colgate was a tough one because I don't think I was really prepared for the level of work. I think in high school, right, like, people always tell you like, yeah, like, college is going to be different. Like, people aren't going to be checking up on you. But that actually wasn't the case. I had people checking up on me. It was myself. It was the steps that I didn't take early on that sort of made my transition much more difficult. So the fact that I wasn't very vulnerable with my inefficiencies and my academics made the transition much harder. Because I think one of the great things that I didn't expect out of Colgate is that there is a ton of help out there for you. But if you don't go looking for it, or if you don't open yourself up to being willing to make that move, to make that transition, it's what makes it difficult. And what made it even more difficult was that I would look around at my friends and my compatriots, and they seemed to be doing much better than I was. And I think that I sort of had it on my own mind that I was like, oh, like something must be wrong. I don't know what it is, this transition. I don't know why it's so much difficult for me. The truth is that everybody's transition to Colgate is very different, depending on the backgrounds that they came from and what academic successes they had in the past. And so even though I was at the top of my school coming out of Cristo Rey, which is my high school, when I got here, I definitely sort of had my struggles along that way. But I think one of the things that sort of helped my transition along was just being open and vulnerable with myself and accepting that, this is going to be a little bit difficult. There are going to be some extra steps that I'm going to have to take along the way. But after making those steps, the transition became much smoother. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it got easier, but the challenges that I faced, though still difficult, were not as hard to traverse because I had a lot of help to go along with it.
Right. Thank you. And Michaela, similar question to you. Obviously, you just kind of went through the transition, and you can even talk a little bit about, how Colgate has handled the COVID situation, just given that your start of your first year looks a lot different than I think any of ours did. But how was that kind of transition like? What was the whole arrival process and during your first year like as well? And was there anything that, again, you didn't expect to kind of experience in your transition?
Yeah, so coming into Colgate, all of us had to go into quarantine for about 2 weeks, which was kind of an interesting experience, not really knowing anything. I didn't know my roommate or any people that lived on my floor, which was definitely interesting. So I found myself kind of struggling a little bit with homesickness, which is something I wasn't expecting. I mean, I am coming from Arizona, so it's a lot far away from where I'm used to. But one thing that sort of like struck me by surprise is, like KP said, you have to reach out for help, and I did. And there were so many people there willing to help me. It was actually so kind and like almost overwhelming, the amount of people that wanted to help me out and like sort of, give me comfort and support and to stay here, things being so different and everything. Also, just all of my classes are online, which is definitely an interesting experience. So I find myself with a lot more free time between classes. That's one of the things that's different for me going from high school to here. It's not you wake up at 8 a.m. every day, you leave school at 4, it's not 6 classes a day, like Monday through Friday. I only have 4 classes. Most of my classes are only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So a lot of it is just trying to figure out a routine that works for you and kind of just like dealing with the time management and everything. But like I said, there's a lot of people there to help you. And I feel like I've gotten into the rhythm of things. So the workload is tough, like KP said, but there are a lot of people willing to help you. And once you figure out sort of like the rhythm of everything, it becomes like a great experience. And even though things have been different now, I've really been enjoying everything. And I still have been able to maintain close relationships with my professors and talking to different classmates and everything. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that COVID didn't take away your kind of first year experience, and you were able to come to campus. And I think having a majority of students actually return to campus definitely, goes to show how much the community can actually mean. I think we all really wanted to have some form of normalcy through the college experience, and offering that option for our students definitely helps them kind of think of, okay, I'm really going through a college experience, especially as a first year. Kaylani, how have you made Colgate your place or your home, and are there any like groups or organizations on campus that have helped you with the transition or even finding that sense of home?
Thank you for that question. First Generation Scholars Program is something that is my family, is my home here. There is a house called OUS First House on campus that is for OUS and first students. We could talk about OUS later, but that house is really open to really all students, and it caters to students of color. It's though the people that are in my first generation scholars group, they really helped me transition. I live with the people that I met through my first generation scholars program. Um, I've lived with them since my freshman year. They're my closest group of friends, and the best part about it is that we are all so completely different. We're all from different states from across the world. One of my best friends is from Italy, and we are extremely different, but we act like a family. That whole brother-sister dynamic is how we are with each other, and they have helped me stay sane through the tough workloads, through the snow, through this predominantly white campus. So the people in that group, the OUS First House, that community has really helped me transition and stay strong here.
Great. And KP, same question to you. How have you kind of been able to find your sense of place, sense of home? And are there any, clubs or organizations or groups that have helped you through that?
Yeah, I think after sort of trying to define who I was the hardest part. And after that, I was able to find the spaces that fit me well. So I think one of the spaces that I fit in really well was at Career Services. So I work there, and it's been a loving family, and it's really helped me see outside of Colgate. I think too often I sort of just got stuck in the muck of Colgate, like, and moving through this campus and in different ways. It's sometimes difficult to see what the life outside of Colgate is like, even though it's only 4 years, it seems so long. And the one thing about Career Services is that it constantly reminds me that, there's more out there than what's going on currently. And I think in terms of being a person of color, I really like the Alana Cultural Center. I mean, last semester and sophomore year, I'd always go there because I had a really good friend who worked there. And every time I would pull up, there's always a smiling face to greet you in the lobby. I'm the Black Student Union as well, and that's been helpful. I think the main point is just finding your group of people. And once I found the group of people who understood me, who may not necessarily have the backgrounds as Kehlani was referring to earlier, right? But who can understand where I'm coming from and who can have somewhat shared experiences while also still having that love together, like that really, Alana Cultural Center. Yeah, so it's a cultural center on campus. I don't think it stands for anything.
It's it's African, Latin American, Native American, and Asian. I think I definitely mixed something together, but that is what it stands for.
Yeah, does anyone want to, either Kaylani or KP, talk a little bit about Alana, or maybe if you know about its history or any like events that you guys like to attend that Alana puts on?
Alana
I'm current.
Palooza.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Alana Palooza. Okay. So Alana Palooza is like basically a cookout with everybody's invited, free food, t-shirts, other kinds of gear. It's dancing, it's talking, it's KP, you can continue talking
I
about
think it's
it.
honestly like the one event that I look forward to every single year. It is so much fun. Like unlimited food, basically. You can eat as much as you want. There's always good music, cultural music, and you get to see everybody on campus who you usually don't see, like on the regular. If we're all in one place, it just gets the jam and the vibe is great, and I love it so much. It's really good.
Yeah, it's such good energy. It really kind of breaks up the Colgate muck that you were talking about, KP.
Awesome. I just love, yeah, Lollapalooza is great, and I love being able to kind of see everyone really, start off the year really well. And I think they even had some sort of a virtual Lollapalooza this year. Obviously, a lot of things have been made virtual just given the situation, but hopefully next year we will be able to have something and stay safe throughout that as well. In terms of kind of support and resources that are available for students of color and how you kind of taken advantage of them, Kaylani, can you speak a little to that and what you feel like you've been able to use as a resource?
Yeah, so I know KP talks a little bit about career services, but one of the highlights that is absolutely amazing to me is the summer funding initiative. So if you they call it the create your own adventure thing, and it's great because you literally create your own adventure and then you apply for funding, and then I think about like 40 or 50% of students get funding around, but I think it's between $5,000 and $8,000 depending on if you're domestic or international. Yeah, so you could volunteer somewhere else. Like my freshman year summer, I had an internship with the Guam Preservation Trust in Hagåtña, Guam, where I did some cultural work at a preservation center. And that was funded by a summer funding initiative. And it was absolutely amazing. It was beyond my wildest dreams because I've never heard of a program that would just, just give you money and just be like, go learn, go educate yourself. But yeah, that the first generation scholars initiative, there have been a lot of resources, advisors, money, programming, to create community, to really support your academic, your mental, your spiritual well-being. So those are some really great resources for me.
Great. And KP, again, similar question to you. What do you feel like you've been able to use in terms of resources, whether it be, specific professors or office or, areas that you have found that support as a student of color?
So one of the scholarship programs that was lightly referred to earlier was the Office of Undergraduate Scholars, which stands for OUS, and I'm currently a part of that program. Basically, it's a scholarship program for students who have overcome adversity to achieve high academic achievement. And so that's really been helpful for me because I think, again, like I met Kehlani through that, and the First Gen and OUS program, they're sister programs, and we share that house, and that house has always been great. And I think the advisors who've been there, again, right, that constant outreach that I've had, even when I came through in the summer for one of the pre-op programs, that I think the support that I got there and just having someone to talk to was really, really impactful. And the Center for Learning and Teaching Resources, I think, on campus was also extremely helpful to me because, as I said before, I had, and I still do, struggle academically. And I have someone who I meet with every week to go through my week, and then we talk about what needs to get done and what needs due, and we'll go through and we'll make a to-do list. And I think the support that I've had there has helped me so much. So.
Great. And one last question for all three of you is, what advice for incoming students of color would you give? What advice do you wish you would have been able to have had, either as kind of a senior going through the process or as a first year kind of entering to know before you either, whether it be Colgate or just, again, going to college just in general? Michaela, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, so far for me, what's kind of helped is just finding the right group of people. And to do that, I think just getting involved in as many events as you can. There's a lot of flyers and like emails sent to you on a daily basis, like a bunch of them. And I think there's a lot of fun activities going on. If you just take advantage of those, you can find a lot more friends. Like this Friday, we're having a little succulent painting event for first students, which I'm really excited for. And yeah, I think just getting involved and finding the right group of people is kind of what's been helping me get along so far.
Great. And Kaylani?
My advice to you about going to any college, whether it be Colgate or somewhere else, is that you are absolutely entitled to every resource, every classroom space, like every advisor. Like you earned your spot in that institution, and you absolutely deserve every single piece that you can take from it. And I wouldn't let anybody ever try to question you or your position in that institution, because you earned it, and you are, you came to collect, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, don't ever feel like you don't belong somewhere, that you don't, like, you are imposter syndrome basically. But you are entitled to every as soon as you get that acceptance, like, everything, it's yours, it is yours, and take advantage of it.
Great. And KP?
Oh, I think I ought to just echo what she just said. Yeah, you just have to own it. You got to understand that, I think a lot of times in life, there are some things that are given and some things that are not. And when it comes to college and when it comes to Colgate, sometimes you got to go out and you got to reach for stuff. And you got to have the confidence within yourself to know that, I am here no matter what the circumstances may be, no matter how much I'm struggling, I'm still here just the same as everybody. And no matter where you come from, you're still at Colgate at the end of the day. And in 4 years, knock on wood, you do what you need to do and you get help, you're going to get that degree. And at the end of the day, it won't matter. So I think knowing that and understanding that, and personally for me as a student of color, as a Black man, I think almost when I come into spaces, I'm sort of like representative of that, of like my race. And I think that's an internal thing that you gotta work on. There's gonna be that voice inside that's really gonna get to you. And it won't always be the people outside that are saying things, it's gonna be yourself. And it's gonna be an honest conversation that you need to have to understand and root yourself in who you are. You got to be rooted in something, because I think anywhere you go and anywhere in life and moving through different spaces as a person of color, you're going to go through challenges, you're going to be tested. But if the root that you stand on is strong, you'll be able to weather anything. So I think taking the time to truly understand who you are, doing that work early, and then moving outward with that mindset, including what Kalani said, to go get yours and go do what you got to do. And that'll be a huge help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want you to always understand that it's a growing process. Like, you will not automatically start out, ready to take what you need to take. And just remember that, I remember coming here and I was terrified as all hell. Like, all these people went to, boarding schools, like in Europe, or, went to like the top schools in the United States. And I was like, oh my God, like, my shitty ass public high school in Metro Atlanta did not prepare me for any of this. I was not on the same level in my head, like my vocabulary, all the writing skills, it just wasn't there. But, I had to realize that, I was just as smart as these dummies out here, and doing better as well. And it takes a while to get to where you need to be, but, it is a process, and you will get there. Like, you will get there as long as you just continue to work on it. So.
Great. Well, those are all the questions we had kind of prepared for you all. We've already gotten some really great questions in the Q&A. And I think you guys kind of touched a little bit upon this, but we did have a question. Has anyone ever felt like you don't belong at Colgate since it's such a selective school? I know KP and Kaylani, you kind of touched a little bit upon making sure that and like don't have the sense of imposter syndrome. Kaylani, can you, again, either one of you ever felt, or like I can answer this even more? You can go, Kaylani. Yeah.
I don't think I have. I think there maybe not explicit racial discrimination, but I do think that I have encountered a lot of microaggressions, which are really small ways of reinforcing systemic oppression onto people's bodies in regards to my gender, whether or not I was an American citizen. I often feel like my professors are asking me to speak about like systemic racism in my experience as somebody, when it is not my job to educate white people on racism or about white privilege. It's the microaggressions are definitely there, and they do happen, and nobody deserves that. But there is, yeah. In terms of racial discrimination, there are stories of there are some really scary stories, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, we got a question about if anyone's ever experienced any racial discrimination. So if, any of you feel comfortable sharing about, anything you would want to kind of answer that question, feel free to do so.
Maybe not a personal experience of mine, but I have a close friend that was talking about how, I mean, there's a lot, if you drive around, there's like a lot of, Trump signs, like Confederate flags, stuff like that. And one of my close friends went to get a haircut, and the bib that they put around him was a Confederate flag. It made him feel really, really uncomfortable. And that was just really in town. And then for me, I went in town to get my nails done with like my friends for like her birthday. And it was just like sort of like a weird vibe, nothing very direct or anything like that. It was just like a bunch of white women, and then another white woman walks in and she gives us like a really dirty look, just stuff like that. It's just something where you have to, like think to yourself, while you're at Colgate, like, you belong there. You can't like, I don't know, you can't let those types of things affect you a lot per se. You just got to find that support system.
Right. We did also have a question about just in terms of reception for international students and what that kind of looks like. I mean, none of you guys are international students, but can anyone speak to possibly the international student community?
Yeah, I think Colgate, from what I've seen, and again, like, right, I'm not an international student, but I think, Colgate offers storage for international students. I know that there's a program, really, you do know, like, they bring you guys all together, and you're able to meet people. And from what I've seen, I think that there's definitely a community there. And I think that's one thing Colgate tries to do, and I think it does pretty well, and is it fosters a community among people. So that's what I would have to say.
Yeah, in addition to that, I do know that the community of international students is really close-knit and tight, the same way that my first-generation scholars family is really close. I also know that if there were ever to be a problem, that we, as in the first community or the Colgate Student Coalition, which is something that I'm a part of, would organize for you so quickly and make sure that you are taken care of. Because over the summer, whenever ICE announced that they were going to deport international students, unless there were some classes in person, and though we were online, though we are in person this year, that wasn't something that it was announced yet. And so a whole bunch of students at the CSC, we got together really quickly, and we were emailing everybody and their moms to tell them, like, you need to make sure that, there are in-person classes so that international students would be able to stay on campus if they needed it. In addition to that, my friend who's from Italy, whenever COVID hit in the United States, like, Italy was really going through it, and he couldn't go home because I'm pretty sure travel was closed to Italy at the time. And he stayed at Colgate. Well, he's still here. Like, since March, when everybody got sent home, he's been here. And they provided food, they provided housing to him at no cost. So I think that, especially since, support for international students during the global pandemic is so incredibly important, I think Colgate is doing really well with their support for that, but also the community for international students is strong. It's strong.
Right. And then, let's see, Michaela, what are some of your favorite traditions at Colgate?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Traditions, I don't, I don't know. I'm gonna have to pass it on to someone who wants to take it.
Do you have a favorite tradition at Colgate?
So I feel like the Raider of War is definitely, I always miss it though. Believe it's like one of my favorite traditions, but I've actually never gone. So during finals week, President Casey will go down and everybody will group up at the library. And I think it's like 11:59. At some point, like, everybody just yells. So everybody just screams all of the anger and frustration about the times, and you just go about your way. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, on that same night, the Student Government Association buys like a bunch of like McDonald's and stuff. Like, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that's the thing. Either way, the Raider War has definitely got to be one of my favorite ones.
Great. And then Kaylani, you talked a little bit about the Create Your Own program. I believe, so we had a question if that's guided by faculty advisors.
Like the student, what is it called? Summer funding? Is
I
it
think,
guided
yeah,
by
faculty advisors.
you can go to, I know that you can go to career services like during the application process and they will guide you through that process, but also after you get that funding, they will do like a budget workshop for you. And there are some like small requirements, like a blog post or something like that for you. And then during the summer, they stay in contact with you and make sure that, you know, everything is going okay. So, but even like, whenever I was working on my application, I was going through my first generation scholars advisor to help me with my writing. So yeah.
Right. And then we also mentioned a little bit about the Colgate Student Coalition, but we did have a question of, are there student-led initiatives to help prevent discrimination successful at Colgate? I know, Kaylani, you have been instrumental, I think, in that part. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel like you've been able to kind of engage in that and really be on the forefront of these kind of initiatives?
Yeah, well, first I want to let you know that like students have been organizing for social justice on campus and off campus for years, even before I got here. There is truly a really strong foundation of student activism on campus to help support minority students, low-income students, queer students, any student with a marginalized identity. There is a strong history of student activism behind that. This is something that has been really important to me while being on campus as a way to kind of cope with the whiteness and the wealthiness here, as well as like the first generation scholarness kind of situation happening. But I'll put it in the chat, but at Colgate, is it Colgate SC, question mark? So I even know the handle. Okay, yeah. Colgate Student Coalition is something that has been really important to me, but I do know that Sisters of the Roundtable Brothers, Black Student Union, Caribbean Students Association. Oop, I sent it to not you. But you know, there is activism all over campus, and recently the Colgate Student Coalition, we have been organizing for Breonna Taylor since before the verdict came out. It was completely disappointing, and we will continue to advocate for her and her case. Why do I keep sending it to the wrong person? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I can also
but
put it in there if you need me to.
It's okay. There we go. There we go, at Colgate Student Coalition. So we have been organizing for that. We organized for the international students when ICE came out with that in the beginning of the summer. We were organizing for Black Lives Matter protesters, and with a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of Colgate people, we raised $72,000 together in support of Black Lives Matter protesters. What else have we done? There were some racist TikToks coming from Colgate students, and we did letter campaigns on email campaigns to make sure that those students were punished for their racism in public. So yeah, Colgate is, there is strong activism here on this campus, and so I think you should feel comfortable in that it does exist.
Great. And then Michaela, you mentioned you're a part of Sisters in the Roundtable. We had a question about what is Sisters in the Roundtable?
Yeah, so it's a club. It's just like women of color. We meet weekly. I actually had a meeting today. We just kind of talk about like different stuff. Like 1 week we talked about like our zodiac signs, and then today we talked about like women who deserved better and our experiences on campus and stuff like that. It just depends. It's more like a chill kind of like meetup thing. It's a really great way to meet new people too. I've met a lot of different women of color, students of color that are like upperclassmen. So now I'm kind of like reaching out of like just freshmen and everything. Super kind people. Yeah, just basically just like chill weekly meetings, just talking about like whatever they pick, you know, the topics of the week. We to de-stress for midterms, they just have like a bunch of categories for music, and we put song suggestions for like different playlists. And so now we have like a bunch of playlists for our Sisters of the Roundtable. So yeah, that's basically what it is.
Great. And then Kevin, there's a question I'm going to kind of tie two in here, a little bit about, you know, how, you know, do students of color feel safe Are there systems in place to make people of color feel safe? And then also, we had a question about, do any of you go into town by yourself? So I'm kind of tying that a little bit and not just thinking about safety within campus, but also safety within, going into town in Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from my experience, but personally, I don't necessarily feel unsafe walking around campus. That's not to say that, of course, there aren't people who don't. And that's not to say that there aren't situations where, people haven't felt the safest out. But I definitely think that, a lot of students will say that I've never personally felt for my safety walking out in town. And in terms of if I go alone, if I got to go to McDonald's or I need to go to Maxwell's to get a milkshake, or I need to go to the Hamilton Eatery to get my chicken Caesar wrap, I'll go. I'll ride my bike in town, and it's not too far. And on days where there's not a bunch of snow on the ground or rain falling, it's actually a really nice walk. So.
Great. We also had a question. It says, real talk, where do Black students go to get their hair done? Barbershop / hairdressers in the area, someone's house.
No, I feel like it's so funny because every time like my mom will I FaceTime, she'll like, Kevin, you need your hair cut. And he'd be like, I would be lying if I said it's easy. Now, usually Colgate will run a shuttle to Syracuse. And some people do that where you can hop on that. You go out, it's like an hour or so ride out, and you get your hair cut at Destiny Mall, I think, and you can come back. For me personally, I go to a barbershop in Utica, Dominican barbershop. They usually fix me up right. And I'll just rent a zip car, and I'll go with a couple friends of mine. Sometimes Brothers, an organization that I'm a part of, will get a group of guys to go, and then they'll all go to the barbershop and get their hair cut. So.
In the chat, I'm going to put another Instagram account that is run by a Colgate student. I believe it's Malobi who runs it, and she has a lot of tips and like informative slides or whatever that helps give a little bit of information about what else goes on.
Great. And then we also had a question. Kaylani wanted to answer this. Are there any resources for women of color? And do you feel as women of color, your experiences are different in class?
Wait, for resources, okay, I guess I'll start with resources. Michaela already talked about SORT. SORT, I haven't been to a lot of SORT meetings this semester, but it was definitely, that is a really big support for women of color on this campus. It's just a loving, wholesome community of women of color just lifting each other up and having a good ass time together and listening to good music. But for other resources, in relationship to any kind of sexual assault that may happen on campus, we have Haven, we also have a counseling center and a student health center that are helpful. And I do think that there is, for women of color, for Black women especially, there is like a hyper visualization happening on campus where you feel like people are looking at you all the time, and there's also hyper invisibility where you feel like you're not seen at all. And I think that there is realness to an experience where that, you might not feel as comfortable in spaces, especially in the classroom space. I've done a lot of research this semester in terms of comfort, academic comfort in the classroom for Black women, and Black women have felt marginalized in the classroom space for many years, oftentimes because professors expect Black women to educate others on racism, systemic oppression, and so I do think that there is a realness to that, but I also think that even despite women of color on this campus are absolutely resilient and smart as all hell, and they are like, women of color are the ones who get fellowships on this campus. They're the ones that study abroad. They're the ones with the scholarships. They're the ones that are, making the most and doing the most out here. And it shouldn't be as problematic as it can be here. But you can still do well despite the fact that there is some trash happening for women of color here.
Okay. And then we also had a question a little bit about what are the career advice at Colgate? KP, I know you work in the career services office. Can you talk a little bit about what career services offers for students in terms of career advice?
So Career Services has a number of things available to students. So Kalani talked about summer funding, which is a great program that Career Services run. Well, students can choose to decide to do a summer program, even if it might not pay them, or either they have a little bit of trouble trying to pay for some of those expenses, they can apply and they get that money back. But in terms of career advice, we've got a number of advisors, I think about 5 or 6, where they focus on certain industry areas. So one might focus on investment banking, finances, all that. Some will be a dedicated pre-med person. Some will be a dedicated STEM person. Someone's a dedicated law, common good person. And so what you basically do is you meet with them. They're a career advisor. They stick with you. And I've actually been working with the same 2 advisors for my entire time here at Colgate, ever since sophomore year. So I think that's an important part, right, where you build that relationship with someone. And also on the back end of that, career services as a whole does a very good job at fostering relationships with employers and alumni who have gone on to graduate. And a lot of times what you'll see is we'll have alumni come back and do info sessions about what they do. We have a platform called Handshake, which is basically like a student database that does twofold. So there's 2 things. So it, on your end, the student end, when you're log in and you populate your profile, Career Services is able to gather data from that. And so we can better tailor our services that we provide to students. And on the employer side, what they're able to do is they're able to post jobs on Handshake. So every job that's posted on there comes through us, and we filter it out. We make it look nice, and we send it out to students. And a lot of those jobs that are on Handshake are relationships that have been cultivated over years and years from Colgate building and speaking with employers and talking to them, talking our students up, making recruiting a lot easier on the back end. And so if a student comes in and has no idea what to do, or a student comes in and they have every idea what to do, Career Services is always there to help in any way, shape, or form. And that can be from helping to write a resume, or it can be from accepting a job offer, right?
Great. Thank you so much for that information. We're getting kind of to our last minutes here, so we're going to try to answer as many more questions as we can. But we did have a question a little bit about, the weather, and there's, coming from a place where it maybe doesn't snow. Michaela, you haven't gone necessarily through your first winter yet from Colgate, but is that something that you feel like you're anxious about? And then, Kaylani, can you talk a little bit about also coming from a place that it doesn't really snow?
Yeah, so I'm coming from southern Arizona. It never snows. I've been in snow probably about like 2 or 3 times. And it's not even like full snow, like it's like watered down. So I when I was applying to Colgate, it was definitely something I was nervous about, but there have been people that have reached out to me, and like whether it be the first group or short people that have kind of they've sent me like jacket links or whatever, some recommendations on what to buy, what not to buy. And so now I'm not really too stressed about it. I know that there are resources available, like I know that they have like lamps somewhere for if you get like the winter blues or something. So I know that there will be like resources available to me. It's not something that I'm super nervous about, but I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's kind of nice, I don't really get like seasons at all. So like seeing the fall, it's like so beautiful here, and I'm just really looking forward to it. Regardless, I'm not necessarily super anxious about it. So I don't think you should be too stressed about it if you're coming from a place that doesn't snow that often.
For me personally, when my first year, I like since I'm from Metro Atlanta, I know hot and humid, and being sweaty all the time. There's some season, but it's really mild, if really anything. And we do get snow sometimes, but it's not anything. And then they shut down school. But here, like when it snows, you have to go to class. But my first year, the first day or two, it was cute. And then it was terrible. It was terrible. It's hard to deal with. I think, not seeing the sun for a long time is really difficult. The sun will set at 4 p.m. So you could take a nap at 2 o'clock and then wake up and it's completely dark outside. And that was crazy for me. It definitely took a while to get adjusted to it. But there are a lot of really cool events that happen inside that will still happen. And you will definitely like fall down on your way to class. And it's okay because you will see other people fall down, and it's funny, like it's really funny to see other people. It's really funny, like I've seen a lot of people like wipe out, like walking to class or whatever, and it's okay because we're all getting our ass beat by the snow together. So it's difficult, but you can do it, and it can be funny sometimes, and it's extremely beautiful, but it is really cold. And layering is everything.
Great. We also had a question about, as a person of color, do you feel safe or comfortable going to faculty members, POC or not, about issues you face? KP, will you answer this question?
Yes. So I reach out a lot about this. He's a really great guy. And I think yes, by and large, yes. You know, you get a feel for professors, right? So when you're in their classes and you sort of end up finding out who people are that you can reach out to, and that's where with anything. Like so, for me personally, I don't really talk to my advisor all that much, and especially my first year here, I didn't really talk to my advisor all that much. Actual academic advisor, I reached to people who I had built a relationship with. So that's been the main thing for me is finding out people who I've had relationships with, I vibe with well, and then almost by osmosis, you sort of get into deeper and deeper context and deeper conversations, and then you're able to be much more vulnerable in those spaces. So I would say yes, I've been able to find my core group of professors or staff members who've been able to help me in that regard.
Great. And then also, I know none of you guys are, that I think, a part of any Greek letter organization, but do any of you have, friends that have gone through the process of being a person of color and trying to join Greek life, and how that experience is like? KP, I see you nodding your head. Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I think I have quite a few friends who are in Greek life, and I think the it's kind of all over the place. You know, some people really like it, and some people have had trouble adjusting to it. And I think that the one thing to remember is that as a Greek organization, there's a what that past has meant, right? What it's usually been is right back in the day where it was just white people basically who were only in those spaces. And so what I constantly say is that, now that Greek organizations, even though it's been open to PLC for a while, that there you still have people who are coming in, who are coming through, who are not always understanding and can be ignorant to the challenges that people of color face. And so on Colgate's campus, that happens quite a bit. The microaggressions that Kalani was talking about. But of course, when you go down to the level of Greek organization, where people are even more comfortable, they're around their friends, you're more likely to sometimes hear some different kind of stuff. You might hear things that you don't like, and you might really, really see where the cultures clash, where somebody's experience coming out of high school and then their younger life is completely different from yours. And even though they are supposed to be your frat brother or your sorority sister, you're going to have those points of contention. And so I think a lot of my friends have sort of had to question that. They've had to think about who they are, and then why is it that they're a part of this organization, and then also what that organization means to them. So I think that, but the experience is all over the place. It just depends on sort of what you've experienced and what you're bringing, and then how you interact with the people there. But there have definitely been struggles where people have had in questioning their own identity and the identity of the organization that they are joining.
Right. And then there was a follow-up question of if there are any Divine Nine chapters on campus, and we do not. We only have Panhellenic. We have 5 fraternities and 3 sororities on campus. And then I'm going to kind of lump these next 2 questions. It's about the experience within the classroom, experiencing microaggressions in the classroom, and how you kind of deal with that into one. And that's kind of going to be our last question as we are wrapping this up. But if any 3 of you or any 2 of you want to talk about it, how would you kind of answer what the atmosphere within the classroom is like being as a student of color?
In class, if you were to ever experience a microaggression, I would encourage you to push back. If you feel comfortable doing that, it can be a lot of work. Like, you definitely do not have to combat or entertain anything stupid that somebody says to you. But if you can, I invite you to push back and put people in their place. Like today, I was in a meeting with the Longyear Museum, and somebody said, like, for the Haudenosaunee, we go a certain direction around the museum, like the way that we orient it. And then somebody was like, well, you can't make anybody happy. Like, you can't make everybody happy, because if somebody came from somebody else, they wouldn't like it. They'd rather go the other way. And then the person who was talking, the speaker from Haudenosaunee, was like, do you know whose land you're on? And I was like, absolutely, yes. So, I mean, like, you know, that kind of directness and, you know, being able to push back against those kind of microaggressions are entirely up to you. But I know that, you know, it took time for me, but push back and let people know, like, they absolutely should not say anything crazy like that to you, and nor should they to anybody ever else. And I would also like encourage, like, you know, your peers to also, you know, step up and, you know, push back for you as well.
Awesome. I'm going to ask all three of you, if you don't mind, putting your emails in the chat for students to reach out to you if they have any further questions. But I really want to thank all three of you for really being here tonight, for sharing with our panelists or with our students and our participants what, you know, life as a student of color is. Being completely honest, this is really what it is about. It is about, you know, offering our prospective students that you know, look into what, you know, Colgate is like, what Colgate is working on, what, you know, our students are doing. I know it's a bit of a different experience, and Colgate is, you know, a selective liberal arts institution, but like I think the three of the students have been echoing is, you know, they're here, they're going through their 4 years, they're gonna get that degree because I know they all three will. And you know, your experience, you have so many people rooting for you, supporting you through that. And I hope that you know, we were able to be here as a resource and answer all of your questions. And again, really be as honest as we possibly can, because that's truly, I think, what this is about. Again, thank you all for joining us tonight. I really appreciate our students as well, being able to be here on campus and continuing to share their experiences. I hope that, again, this was helpful and everyone continue to stay safe. But thank you to my panelists and thank you to everyone coming today. Thanks, guys. Bye.